Okay, here we are. 8.1 notes, graphs of the sine and cosine functions. This is page 6. We've got two more examples, C and D. You'll notice again that the graphs are not labeled. We will get to that. So a couple of things first. Let's really quick, we're going to run through where our values are. So A is that multiplier out front. B is attached to the input or multiplied by the input. Having trouble with my grown-up words. Here's our C. Notice this one is set up so it's 2 theta minus C, so that C is pi over 6. And then here is the D. So our amplitude, it's already a positive 2. Easy enough for us. Our period is 2 pi over B. So 2 pi over 2. Our period is pi. You'll notice this one actually does have a phase shift. So our phase shift, just to remind, is C over B. We didn't use that on page 5 at all. So our C is pi over 6 divided by 2. That's our B. We get pi over 12. This is positive pi over 12. It's going to move us to the right. Our vertical shift, -3. And the important values, we're going to look at those the same way we did on the last page. My period is pi. I want to divide that into 4 equal parts. So my important values are going to be pi over 4 apart. Okay. Now here's the thing. I'm going to take these. So we'd have 0, pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, which would reduce to pi over 2. 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4, which is pi. And we need to accommodate for this phase shift. So what I'm going to do is add pi over 12 to each of these values. If you're really comfortable graphing, you really don't need to do this. If you know the shape, you understand the pieces, you've got that start, the end, the midpoints. This is kind of nice just to double check and make sure you're on the right track if you're a little unsure of yourself. So pi over 4 is 3 pi over 12 plus pi over 12. That gives me a 4 pi over 12 here, which reduces to pi over 3. 2 pi over 4, so 6 pi over 12 plus pi over 12. We have 7 pi over 12. That is the middle of our period. 3 pi over 4, we're going to rewrite that as 9 pi over 4 plus, 9 pi over 12 plus pi over 12. That gives us a 10 pi over 12. And then 12 pi over 12 plus pi over 12 gives us a 13 pi over 12. So here's how we're going to use this information, that phase shift. Let's figure out how we're going to number this first. I'm pretty sure I can just count by pi over 12s. So here's 1 pi over 12. That makes that 2 pi over 12, 3 pi over 12, 4 pi over 12, 1. I'll fill in a couple here, but we're definitely not going to count all of these since we don't need them. See if we can get some of the standard ones in a different color there. So we got 5 pi over 12, 6 pi over 12, 7 pi over 12. We need that one. So really what I want to make sure is that I know where to find these values on my graph. Okay, so 8 pi over 12, 9 pi over 12, this is 10 pi over 12, or 5 pi over 6. 11 pi over 12, 12 pi over 12, which would be pi. And then 13 pi over 12. Okay. Here's the 0. I mean, if I was counting backwards, I could go also negative pi over 12 the other way. Again, we're just worried about a single period right now. I'm going to go ahead and just count by ones again. 1, 2, 3, 4. That makes this 5. Negative 3. And I can number more if I need to. And so I'm going to start by sticking that vertical shift in. To be honest with you, if I were graphing this on paper, I would make this a dotted line. It's not actually part of the graph. Our midline tells us where our zeros would be before any transformations. This program, though, won't let me draw a super straight dotted line. My lines are not super straight. If I connect it, it straightens it for me, so I'm going to go with that. And then I'm going to go ahead and remind myself of where my vertical shift takes me to. So I'm going to the right, pi over 4. Okay. It's a sine function, so I know I've got a 0 at the beginning of the period and the end of the period, also in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and graph that. My midline is my 0. Pi over 12, I'm at 0. 7 pi over 12, I'm at 0. And 13 pi over 12, I'm at 0. And then it's a positive 2. That means it's going to go up first. And so at pi over 3, I'm going to have that amplitude of 2 working in. So at pi over 3, instead of going up 1, we are going up 2 to negative 1. And then at 5 pi over 6, we're going down 2. And then I just sketch in my sine curve. Again, you could continue if you want. We really are just looking for that one period to make sure everything makes sense. Okay, D. So again, we have an amplitude of 4. Again, it's positive, so we're going to go up first. Our period is 2 pi over 1 over 3. So we're going to have a period of 6 pi. Our phase shift, notice here that this says plus pi over 4. So if I wanted to rewrite this, 1/3 theta minus negative pi over 4. So my C is actually that negative pi over 4. And we're going to divide that by 1/3. So I get a phase shift of negative 3 pi over 4. My graph's going to move to the left. My vertical shift here, again, down 2. My important values. Let's see, my period is 6 pi. I want to cut that into 4 equal pieces. I get 6 pi over 4, which means that those values, those important values I'm looking for, are all going to be 3 pi over 2 apart. So 0, 3 pi over 2, add another, you get 6 pi over 2, which is 3 pi. Plus 3 pi over 2 is 9 pi over 2. Plus 3 pi over 2 is 12 pi over 2, which is 6 pi. That's good. That's how it should work. We should end up at the end of the period. To each of these, I'm going to subtract 3 pi over 4. My shift is a negative 3 pi over 4. So I'm adding negative 3 pi over 4. So I get negative 3 pi over 4. I get 3 pi over 2, 6 pi over 4 minus 3 pi over 4. So this one is 3 pi over 4, positive. 12 pi over 4 minus 3 pi over 4 is 9 pi over 4. 18 pi over 4 minus 3 pi over 4 gives me a 15 pi over 4. And 24 pi over 4 minus 3 pi over 4 gives me a 21 pi over 4. I am going to go ahead and circle the values that I want because it's really easy to get your numbers confused. This is a 21. Okay, so let's figure out how we are going to count this. I think what I'm going to do, here's my shift, I'm just going to go and I'm going to make my vertical shift this way. This is my negative 3 pi over 4. So every 2 little tick marks is going to be negative 3 pi over 4. Let's number this. Which means going this way, I've got positive 3 pi over 4. The next one would be 6 pi over 4. We know that reduces to 3 pi over 2. That makes this 9 pi over 4. 12 pi over 4, or 3 pi if we want to fill that in. 15 pi over 4. 18 pi over 4, 9 pi over 2. 21 pi over 4. And 24 pi over 4, which is 6 pi. Okay, so vertical shift next, down 2. So we're just going to count this off the same way. Here's 1, here's 2. Again, I'm going to draw that midline in. Okay, so this is cosine. This starts above the midline. It hits the midline at those middle values. So I'm going to go ahead and plot those. So this one and this one, these are on the midline. Those would be our zeros. So at 3 pi over 4 and 15 pi over 4, I'm right here on the midline. At negative 3 pi over 4, which is the start of the period, I am above. It would be 1 above the midline, but our amplitude's 4, so we need to go 4 above the midline. So 4 above negative 2 is positive 2. We're right there. Keep in mind the end of our period at 21 over pi, it should end up in the same place, so I'm going to plot that one as well. And then that midpoint, 9 pi over 4, we are going to be 4 below the midline. So 4 below negative 2 puts us at negative 6. And I could go ahead and just graph this in. You could make that a little curvier. Use your imagination. It's all good. Right? So hopefully that helps. Definitely let me know if you have any questions on this.